we start off with drawing our grid onto our photograph, okay? So we can set our paper kind of aside for a second. Well, first off, let's just let you know that I scaled this so that your photograph is 6 inches by 6 inches, and your paper is 12 inches by 12 inches, therefore it's double in size. So you're going to get a 1 inch by 1 inch square on here, and you'll get a 2 inch by 2 inch square on here, okay? So, alright, so let's start off with putting a grid on our photograph, okay? Now, it's really important that you get this pretty accurate, okay? Because the grid's not really going to work if the grid's not accurate, okay? So what I like to do is you set my ruler up along the top side of the photograph, okay? So that essentially, you know, the 0 is right there at the edge of the photograph, okay? And then you can see it's 6 inches, okay? That's how big this photograph is. It's 6 inches. So I got the 0 at the edge, right there, and then you can see it stops at 6 inches, okay? All right, so what I'm going to do is every inch, I'm just going to put a little dash at the top of every inch. I might need to get my reading glasses out for this. So I can zoom in a little bit. So here, you can see at the 1 inch I got a little dash, to 2 inch, to 3 inch, 4 inch, and then 5 inch. See, I got a little off there. Maybe it's just the way the paper's kind of crinkled as I'm holding it. So I got little dashes there, and I move the ruler away. That's what you'll see, is a dash. Little mark for every inch. I don't have to do it for the first one. I don't have to do it for the last one. Okay, just the edges of the paper are left, you know, that's the ends of the paper. You don't have to do it. Photograph. So I'm going to turn this and then do the next side. Line it up. Make my little marks at the 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, and 5 inch. Don't need to do it the 6 or the 0. Repeat that process. Turn the paper. Line up the 0 at the end. 6 will be at the end of the photograph here. A little dash, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 inch. Turn my paper. It's kind of hard here. My photograph turns white at the edge. Kind of blends in with the surrounding border. So I'm going to put a little line right there. You might have that kind of situation pop up. I couldn't see the edge of the paper because it's white. So I just kind of drew a line right there. All right. Repeat the process, put a little dash, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now the mistake I see students do is they figure, as long as I get 2 sides, I'll be fine. I can make the rest of my grid. Well, that's not going to make for accurate grid, I promise you. You know, you can try to eyeball it and try to get these lines kind of spaced out correctly. What I mean by that is they'll maybe put marks here, but they won't put marks down here. They'll probably put marks over here, but don't put marks over here. And they'll just kind of base it off one side, and they'll just try to make those lines, that grid. I promise you it doesn't turn out as accurate, okay? This will make it more accurate because we've done all sides, okay? Now it's just lining up the ruler on the marks across from each other, just like that. So Now I got my ruler lined up on this mark right here and that mark. Okay. Across from each other. What I'm going to do is now just draw a line across that, connecting those. Now if you're worried that you may not see your pencil line because of that black darkness of the photograph, you could use an ink pen. I'll just do an example of that. You don't have to, but if it makes you feel better, you can. You just wouldn't want to use a really dark, really thick line because then you're covering up part of your photograph. But sometimes you can see your pencil even despite it's over a black area, but just that ballpoint pen right there, that kind of helps a little bit. And that little dark area. But there's nothing there to draw, so it doesn't really matter in those really dark areas anyway. Alright, so just continue the process. Just going to line up the next marks. Draw a line across. It's important that you try to make sure your ruler doesn't move. Notice I'm pressing down my ruler in the middle between these two sides. It kind of gives me better leverage on the ruler. I know some students, they like to hold the ruler kind of out at the end. And when you do that, this end is apt to move on you. Okay, so I like to place my hand right in the center of the ruler. That's less chances of moving. Alright, so now I got all my horizontals there placed on there. So now I'm just going to switch the process and do the verticals. Line up each mark across from each other. Alright, now I've completed my grid on my photograph. That's a 1 inch by 1 inch grid on a 6 by 6 inch photograph. So what we end up with is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares across and 6 squares down. So that should give us a total of 36 squares. Okay? So 36 squares. So if you complete, one square, complete the next square, complete the next square, over time, you'll have your completed photograph, okay, your image. Now notice in some areas, there's not much to draw at all. And there's some areas in this picture where it's kind of a void, all right? So anyway, so let's get to our large piece of paper now, okay? Now you really can't see all of mine on my screen, I don't think. You can on the other screen. And the process is the same. Now, I have 2 different pieces of paper out there, okay? Most of them is poster boards. Question?
I'm kind of lost on how to do
Okay. You want to bring it up here real quick? I'll see if I can help you out. Check your paper. You should have a glossy side to your paper and a matte side to your paper. Okay.
So I know it needs to be 6 that way and 6 that way, but
Okay, so just line this up on the 0 and
it's
6.
6 even.
Yeah.
Okay, then I got it. Yeah.
Yeah, just put 1 at the mark.
Thank you.
So let me see if I can borrow somebody's push board. I can show you up here. All right. So poster board has like 2 different sides to it. I'm not using poster board right now, so we're kind of low on poster board. You can see with this one, it has kind of a, if I can show that kind of sheen to it. I don't know if it's really showing up, but one side is glossier than the other. One side is kind of matte. You can kind of feel it. The other side is kind of glossy. Okay, it's not much sound coming from that. I'll rub my finger across it. But you can kind of look at it too. You can see how light kind of gives that kind of wet kind of surface look. That's more of that glossy look. The other side has that more matte finish look. Okay, you want to draw on the matte finish side. And the reason is pencil is not going to mark well on glossy. You ever try to put pencil on magazine paper? It don't work. Okay, so try to use the matte side of your poster board. Okay, turn your paper over to the matte side. Okay, make sure your matte side is up on your poster board to draw. Because otherwise you're going to have a real hard time getting that pencil to leave a mark. And it'll also be really hard to erase as well. Okay, so now, since this is double the size, we're going to have to double our measurement. So instead of putting a mark every 1 inch, we're going to put a mark every 2 inches. Okay, all right. So let's line a ruler back up at the top. And now, since my ruler is only 12 inches, essentially it stretches all the way across from the 0 at the end, right? And it goes all the way to the 12. Now, this is just 1/16 of an inch short of 12 inches. Paper isn't always perfect in terms of its size when it's cut. So you might find it's just a little short or a little long. That's going to be fine. Okay, that's not going to make or break anything. Okay, if you find your paper is just a little shorter or a little longer than 12, just go with it. It'll be all right. Okay. All right. So now, obviously, I can't put my marks when I do this outside off the outer edge of this. I have to kind of pull my ruler back down a little bit. So I got a place to put my little dashes, my little marks. So I'll put one at the 2. Let's count by 2s. 4, 6, 8, and 10. Move the paper around, rotate it. Line the 0 at the end, flush. It looks like this side is 12 inches. So yours might vary a little bit. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Rotate the paper, do the next side. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Rotate one last time. 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Okay? Alright, so here's the same process, okay? Just line the rule up across from each other, these marks, and just draw your lines. Now normally, I would be like really emphasizing to students not to draw your lines too dark, that we don't want the lines to show up when you're done. But that's okay. Here we're going to paint this with acrylics. And acrylics are going to cover these lines up, no problem at all. But if we're doing a drawing where, the lines would still show, we obviously wouldn't want to see the grid when you're done with your drawing. That would actually ruin your drawing, okay? But this isn't a drawing, this is a painting. And the grid will be painted over, and it'll be covered up, so it'll be fine. The grid's only there to kind of help us start. Our image. And again, since we're drawing such a long distance, I want to emphasize the idea of not placing your hand at the end of the ruler, you really could run the risk of pushing your ruler. I notice a lot of students like to hold their pencil kind of directly angled towards the ruler, and kind of like as if it wants to push up under and then kind of push the ruler. With having your hand at the end and doing that, you're just asking for problems, okay? So what's best is put your hand in the middle of the ruler, spread the force that you're pressing down, and then hold your pencil straight up, okay? It'll be less likely to push up against the ruler, okay? And I like to hold the pencil straight up, okay? And that's that. That's our 2" by 2" grid. And there's our 1" by 1" grid. Anybody having problems with their grid? Alright, so essentially I'm going to give you, I believe it's 4 classes to complete this drawing. Let me go back and check. The 26th, so that gives like today 1, 2, 3, 4 class periods. Okay, so we said there's 36 squares in this. Alright, so divide that by 4, what do we get? What is that? 10? Right? So essentially, no, wait a minute. 36 by 4 is what? 4 times 8 is 32. 4 times, so 9. So 9 squares. 4 times 9. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If you can complete that many in one class period every day between now and Monday, you could complete this drawing. Okay? And that's what I would try to do. I would shoot for a goal of completing 9 squares per class period. Okay? And but if you miss a day, that means you're going to have 18 squares to have to draw. So that's what I would do, okay? Because at that time, what I'm going to do is we're going to get into actually how to paint, okay, with this. In this box, there's a piece of paper, and so it's a big piece of paper. Just grab one of those. And up here, there's a photograph. You need to look through and pick one. And you'll also need to get one of those metal rulers off the cart there. Okay. And basically what we did is we put a 1" by 1" grid on this, and a 2" by 2" grid on that. And we're getting ready to try to draw it on here. So just look through that, see if you can one.
So we just pick one or the one that was there?
Did you take one?
I took one, I just don't remember which one.
It's really hard to say. It could be one of those two. Good morning.
I think it was this one.
Okay.
I took it back there.
All right, so I'm going to demonstrate real quick how to use the grid. Okay. It's really pretty basic. Okay. In terms of the best way to use this. And I'm going to show you why this is so helpful, okay? And this is really important that you pay attention on this, okay? Let's just say there's not really much to draw on that one. I just want to find a good one to kind of demonstrate and show you. So let me find something that has some things going on that can be really helpful. Okay, let's look at this right here. Okay, so let's look at this square right here, okay? This part of this birdhouse. Let's just say I want to draw this one, okay? There's some things going on here within that square that's I can really use to help me, okay? And let me just show you what's really useful. Take a look at where this edge of this birdhouse is. Notice how it almost goes through the intersection of that part of the grid. Okay, it almost hits it. All right, now that's very useful. I know within that square when I draw it that part of that birdhouse has to go through right there. Okay, almost that intersection. Other places where that can be happening, right here, that's hitting right at intersection. Where this part of this bone, this eye socket, is hitting right there at that intersection of that part of the grid. Can't hardly see it. Let's see some other places. Hardly can tell, but there's the edge of the skull right here almost goes right through this part of this intersection. So find some other places. Nothing's kind of popping out to me right now, right off the looking at this, where something's hitting right at the intersection. Okay, but right there it is. Right? So those places are really easy to know, like that has to be right there. It's like a bullseye almost, right? Now, there's other things I can do within my grid. Sometimes you can make a smaller grid within your grid, but without having to measure and do all that. You just kind of eyeball it. Okay, so let me show you with this right here and why I picked that. So if I can find what's the midpoint between here and here, I can eyeball this. Yes. I can eyeball this and say about the midpoint between this intersection and that one is about right here. Okay? Midpoint between here and here is going to be about right here. Midpoint between here and here is going to be right here. Now I don't need to do it over here because there's really nothing around that matters. But look at what I found. Look at where this halfway point is between here and here. Look what's near it. That, okay? That is. And so what's halfway between here and here? This is. Look how that's going right through that. Right? And this isn't really right on it, but it's close to it. At least I know it's a little left of it. Okay? So anytime you can break something down smaller can even help you. Now I'm not completing this and making lines across this, but you can if you felt like it might help you. Okay? All right, so let me draw that. So one thing, you're going to have to make sure you're in the right square. Okay? Now I have students that start maybe at the top from the left, kind of like you're reading a book, and just scan this thing and just take it row by row and draw square by square. You can do it that way. I have students that maybe just follow a contour, and complete that contour. Take it shape by shape. You can do it that way. It doesn't matter, so long as you're in the right square, the right place. So this is 3 squares up, 1, 2, 3. So I'll make sure I'm 3 squares up, 1, 2, 3. Do whatever you need to kind of make sure you're doing that, okay? So let me show you on this now. So I'm going to draw this on here. Now it helps me to kind of also put those kind of halfway points. I'm not measuring, I'm just eyeballing, right? It makes it a lot faster. So now I know this came right outside right here, and it goes right up to basically right here. So now it's just kind of connect the dots. So now I just kind of try to draw that line as it goes up there, and it kind of curves, it looks like. Now, it comes out right here, which is between here and there. That's about right here. So now I can try to draw that down to there, and there we go. Okay, I know that's got to be pretty accurate. And so with this, I know it's probably going to be about right here. It's right up under that. And then this goes right through this intersection right here. where I found that midpoint. And then this goes out right to the left of this midpoint like that. Okay? Then this ellipse right here, that's a little difficult to draw, but just knowing where it goes in and out, like right here, that goes in and out right here, that can help me a lot in terms of at least knowing what size it should be. Now I'm trying to draw this, I'm trying to draw what little bit I see right here, this little shape here. And it goes actually right through that intersection, right here. And then loop back around this way. So this feels a little off right there, so I'm going to correct that. And there we go. So that made that shape a lot easier to draw, just by knowing where it goes in and out of the grid. Okay. There's only one more thing left to draw in there, and that's just kind of inside part right here. All right. Now, a funny thing happens, and I'm just going to show you real quick what makes this really difficult sometimes. Okay. And that's called lost edges. Okay. So y'all see this edge of this leaf right here? How very distinct and defined and hard edge that is? That's what I would call a hard edge, okay? We talked about hard edges in our last painting. But notice how it gets lost. Where did that edge go? Where's the edge of that leaf? Anybody got an idea where the edge of that leaf is? Why it disappeared? Shadow. You know, we were in a dark room, we had a light on it, so we had some really strong shadows, and it's just gone. And that happens a lot. The edge of this house gets gone. Whatever this edge here is pretty much kind of gone. I think that's the foot of the mannequin. And so there's a lot of really subtle kind of edges in here. There's some really strong hard edges, but then there's some edges that just get lost, even right here. Kind of gets lost. So, you know, sometimes you just got to deal with those kind of things. And sometimes you have these really kind of soft, shadowy kind of edges too. You know, shadows create edges as well. Just like this is, just like that is somewhat. There's not really an edge right there. It's just so, such a soft gradient. Sometimes you can try to draw a contour for that, but there's other better ways to draw contours for that sometimes, and I'll demonstrate that. See if I can find someplace. So, like the edge of this shadow right here. If I was going to try to make a drawing of that edge, the way I would do that is I would actually, and that's going to be right here, and it's going to go basically down across here. I might do something like this. Okay, to represent that edge. All I'm doing is designating for something, an edge that kind of happens without trying to draw it as a definitive line. So I've kind of created a linear kind of hatching that kind of designates that edge, okay? So sometimes, like, you know, even across here, so hatching can sometimes help you create an edge. It's kind of like we have a way of like visually closing the gaps and making lines sometimes. That's kind of a line in a way, okay? Kind of represents some kind of a contour, like a soft contour edge. All right. And so other important things to really emphasize and talk about is positive and negative space, okay? And that I can really see within this right here, these leaves, what's happening in here. This would be considered a positive, this would be considered a negative, okay? Sometimes it's easier to draw the negative than the positive, especially when the negative is smaller. So like this shape would be easier to draw than looking at and focusing on this shape. Whereas on this area, it's probably easier to draw the positive area rather than the negative area. Does that make any sense? Negative and positive share the same contour, all right? So if I draw this shape, I'm drawing that shape. If I draw this shape, I'm drawing that shape. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate that. So that's this area right here. That goes in and out. So midway is right here. Midway is right here. That puts it right here. So I'm going to find it easier to draw this because this is smaller. I'm just aiming for this, knowing I got to make it to that point. I may have gone over a little too far in the process, so let me go back another direction. See if I can make it work. All right, so this is my positive, and this is my negative. So I'm going to come down and try it down here. So midway is right here. Midway is right here. So that comes out right here. So now I know where this is. Now I just got to come down and try to draw this shape. Instead of drawing those kind of bumps first, let me just draw it kind of smooth. I think that might make it a little easier. Get the main part of that shape first. Then go back and draw like the little bump kind of stuff, details. Alright, so here's my positive, here's my negative. My negative was smaller, and it made it easier to draw. And that's basically it, you know, in terms of trying to find manners to do this. And let me show you on a drawing that was much more complex. This is on a portrait. I showed this my drawing 2 students. All right, so if you're doing a portrait, everybody take a look at this. So this was basically a 1 inch by 1 inch grid, and this is a 2 inch by 2 inch grid, okay? So when you get into places kind of like the face, you want to make sure the face is really accurate. Whereas, you know, the hair, the ears, all that's important stuff, but the portrait is what makes, you know, we can identify and make likeness. So really, you know, putting a smaller grid within those areas can really help. And then in places you could even make a smaller grid. So I emphasize sometimes with students, sometimes you gotta make a grid within a grid within a grid in places in order to really get true, complete accuracy. So just think about that, you know, in terms of we're not making a smaller grid, we're kind of indicating parts of what would create a smaller grid. I'm only doing it in areas where I found it might be needed or useful. And that's by making those little, kind of little indicators, okay? Any questions on that?